Hey guys, tonight we wander into a little medieval market town nestled between what is now northern France and the southern English coast. A place with cobbled lanes and timber-framed houses where the sun always seems to rise through a haze of smoke and damp linen. It's a town that claims to be more advanced than the countryside it looks down on. And yet in the privacy of back rooms under stairwells and within shuttered kitchens, the women here follow rituals that would make a modern pharmacist pass out. You probably wouldn't survive doing this back in the day. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if your day was full of deadlines and noise, take this time to forget it all. Let your mind wander, float and dream a little. This story isn't urgent. It's just here for you to enjoy and rest alongside. May your sleep be deep and your dreams be lovely. Now dim, the lights maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You wake before the first rooster crows, just as the cold stone floor sends a shiver through your calloused feet. The hearth is dying, the coals faint red, and a layer of ash crusts the pot where yesterday's porridge stuck like regret. Your dress, the same one you wore 3 days straight, still bears the scent of garlic broth and smoke. You stretch your arms with a soft groan, then step outside into the courtyard, where the air is thick with the smell of cabbage manure and the sweet rot of fermenting apples. Somewhere in the haze of early dawn, someone is already shouting at their pigs. Your morning begins not with a bath, not here, not now. Baths are for emergencies, births, or death. Instead, you lift your skirts above your ankles and walk the rutted path to the bakery, your boots half-eaten by mud and your apron stiff with yesterday's grease. Your face still carries the faint traces of soot from last night's fire, and your hands are stained from shelling black walnuts. You pass the butcher's stall and nod to old Heloise, who's sharpening a cleaver while singing a tune about St. Apollonia, patron of teeth and pain. She's missing 5 of her own. No one judges your smell. In fact, they might say, you're too clean. You duck behind the baker's chimney and reach into your pocket for a small pouch of dried sage. A single pinch rubbed into your armpits wards off evil spirits. Another tucked into your shoes keeps worms away. You breathe deeply and try to remember what day it is, because Tuesday is dangerous. Never wash on a Tuesday. The market square slowly fills with life women untying carts of turnips, old men haggling over candle stubs, children flicking pebbles at each other under the gallows post. Above it all, church bells toll with indifference. You head back to the house and begin your morning cleansing. You open a small jar of bread crusts soaked in vinegar, your mother's special solution for wiping sin from the cheeks. You scrub your face with the soggy crumbs. The smell makes your eyes water, but they say if the sting isn't real, neither is the cleansing. No water touches your skin. Not yet. That would tempt chill demons into your bones. Next, you lift a sliver of lard-stained cloth, stiff with dried chamomile, and gently pat behind your ears. This was your grandmother's secret trick. She believed the soul sat just beneath the earlobe and should be greeted each morning with warm fat to keep the day kind. Historians still argue whether these customs were driven by scarce water religious influence or sheer generational stubbornness. You look into a cracked mirror made from polished pewter and try to tame your hair with a boar bristle brush that's missing half its teeth. There's a streak of ash across your temple you didn't notice. You leave it. Everyone knows a bit of soot keeps the whispers away. Downstairs, your cousin coughs up something thick and green. You hear her mutter a prayer to Saint Wiberata under her breath, the one they say could smell death a week early. You know what she's really hoping for, that someone has leeches, or at least a cat's whisker charm. Outside, the fog begins to lift, revealing the rooftops of the town in full light thatch and slate and odd patches of moss. Smoke curls from chimneys and carts rattle over the cobblestones. Life is waking up, and so are its rituals. You carry a tin bowl out into the courtyard, filled with bits of stale beer and egg yolk. You don't drink it, you wash your hands in it. Gently, slowly, like anointing. The yolk is said to strengthen the fingers' beer, to soften calluses. You rinse not with water, but with flour dust. You clap your palms together, creating a small puff of gold in the morning air. You hum to yourself a song your aunt taught you about the woman who lived 100 years because she never washed below the neck. You're not sure it's true, but she did have fewer wrinkles than most. Finally, as the sun breaks the edge of the rooftops and the bell chimes 6 times, you grab your wicker basket and head toward the square, again, ready to trade some garlic for honey, maybe some dried leeks for beetroot. Your mind catalogs what to do next. Brush your teeth with crushed oyster shells, soak your feet in vinegar and ash. Maybe warm a clay pot of sheep's urine to cure your sister's headache. You smile at a passing friend, both of you smelling faintly of onion soot and medicinal regret. This is your morning routine. It doesn't feel strange to you. In fact, it feels safe, familiar, ancient. And somewhere beneath the layers of ritual and ash, you feel clean, in your own way. You step outside once more, leaving behind the familiar routines of your morning cleansing, only to be reminded that not every day is meant for washing. Indeed, the ancient edict looms, never wash on Tuesdays. The moment the idea reaches your ears, carried on the hushed murmurs of neighbors at the market, you feel a twinge of apprehension mixed with a wry amusement. Here in this peculiar town, where superstition intermingles with practicality, the days themselves seem imbued with cautionary wisdom. A stout, grizzled woman from the corner stall known simply as Marigold leans in conspiratorially as she sells her wares of dried herbs and sourdough loaves. With a knowing squint, she whispers, "Tuesdays, dear. If you dare to wash on Tuesday, your dreams will be haunted by the ghost of a drowned loved one. They say even your own family might see you drifting like some ghost doomed to roam." Her words, half myth and half warning, send shivers down your spine, despite the morning chill. You swallow, recalling how elders in the town passed along such lore as if it were gospel truth, a truth older than the muddy cobbles you tread upon every day. As you continue your way through the crowded market, the murmur of voices and clatter of wooden carts creates an ambient cadence reminiscent of an incantation. Every stall seems to echo with the cautionary tale of washing on Tuesdays. You notice that even the well-dressed ladies with their elaborate headscarves have a subtle air of concern in their eyes. It is a day when water revered as both sustenance and a carrier of life transforms into an omen, a veritable harbinger of misfortune if used unwisely. Around you, remnants of the previous day's cleansing rituals still cling to the air. The bread crust paste lingers as a faint sour aroma mingling with the smoky remnants of incense. Even as the market awakens with life's bustle, you are ever aware of that unspoken rule. The tradition is so deeply rooted that you dare not break it, not even for a moment of perceived luxury or relief. After all, the very fabric of your daily life is interwoven with these superstitions passed down like precious heirlooms from mothers to daughters in hushed, reverent tones. You pause near a stall where a young woman newly arrived from the countryside timidly asks about the proper course of action for cleansing. In her wide, searching eyes, you see a mix of skepticism and hope. With a gentle smile, you explain that Tuesday is a day for nature to work its own subtle magic. It is a day when the body is allowed to retain the natural oils and mists of the previous cleansing. This preservation, you say, is believed to guard against the capricious spirits of water. After all, the body in its imperfect form is considered a vessel of both physical and spiritual essence. A well-known remedy recorded in an old herbal manuscript of the time advises against excessive washing so as not to disturb the delicate balance between the seen and the unseen. Historians still argue whether these customs were born purely of superstition or a practical response to the scarcity of clean water. Yet here they persist as unyielding dogma. The market's energy gradually shifts as the day matures. You join a small procession of townsfolk who have gathered in the square, the gentle murmur rising to a soft rhythmic chant. They speak in hushed tones about the sanctity of Tuesday's natural state, a state in which the body is left to its own devices in the wake of previous rites. With every step, the cobblestones beneath you seem to echo the ancient warnings, a reminder that each day is weighted with its own rituals and taboos. A pungent breeze carries with it the aroma of freshly baked bread and the sharp tang of vinegar, a remnant of yesterday's cleansing now avoided with deliberate care. You notice a peculiar sight, a small group of children playing by a murky fountain, their laughter a symphony of mischief and innocence, oblivious to the superstitions that shroud the adults. Their carefree splashes contrast starkly with the disciplined restraint of those who believe in preserving the natural state of the body on this fateful day. In the midst of this bustling scene, you pause to consider the wisdom or madness behind this rule. You remember a particular incident long whispered in the alleys of this town. A young woman enamored with the idea of modern cleanliness defied the decree and bathed on a Tuesday. That very night, her dreams were filled with relentless visions of drowning her family, waking to find her in a state of disquiet that lasted days. The memory of that warning is vivid, a stark reminder of the consequences that might befall anyone who dared to rebel against tradition. It is a legacy of both fear and respect for the invisible forces thought to govern daily existence. The scene around you softens as the market begins to wind down, the harsh clatter of activity giving way to a subdued calm. The sky, now a pale canvas of blue, offers a temporary reprieve from the ever-looming superstitions. Yet even in this seeming tranquility, the undercurrent of Tuesday's taboo persists. You brush a stray lock of hair from your face and feel the residual warmth of the morning sun, a subtle contrast to the chill that sometimes accompanies the thought of those spectral warnings. You find yourself settling into a quiet bench near the central fountain. Its water, a murky reminder of both life and decay. As you rest, your mind drifts to the many remedies and peculiar practices you have embraced, each one a thread in the rich tapestry of your heritage. The textures of your daily experience, the coarse fabric of your dress, the rugged surface of the wooden bench, the distant murmur of the town combine to create a sensory lullaby that soothes you even in the midst of superstition. In this moment of repose, you allow your thoughts to wander. Every ritual, every word spoken in hushed reverence is a link to a past where science and magic intertwined, where water was not merely a cleansing element, but a potential vessel for misfortune if handled unwisely. And so, you sit in contemplation, enveloped in the quiet splendor of a town that is as much a relic of ancient wisdom as it is a living, breathing community. You feel the strength of tradition and the weight of history, knowing that your daily choices bound by these archaic rules shape your very essence. In your heart, you accept the paradox. To live in this town is to oscillate between modern practicality and the uncanny pull of ritual. Perhaps it is this delicate balance that has allowed your people to endure through the ages. Amid the clamor of life and the persistent murmur of warnings, you find a serene pride in following these strange, enduring customs. Historians still argue whether these practices were a form of early public health or simply relics of superstition. But for you, they are the very marrow of daily existence, binding you to a lineage of women who navigated life's uncertainties with a blend of pragmatism and reverence for the unseen. As the day unfolds, you rise once again, cautious yet resolute, knowing that the rules of Tuesday will guide you. You carry on with your tasks imbued with a sense of duty to uphold the ancestral wisdom that both protects and mystifies, weaving a narrative of existence that is as rich and perplexing as the market town itself. You return home just as the midday sun begins to filter through the narrow wooden slats of the shutters. The light spills in gentle bands across the packed dirt floor, illuminating the curling edge of your apron and the clay jug of cloudy water by the hearth. You set your basket down, its contents jostling together. Turnips, a knob of old cheese, 2 cracked eggs, and most importantly, a torn cloth parcel of bread crusts. You won't eat them, of course. Not today. Instead, you prepare them for what you've always known as the scrubbing ritual. It's your face you see. You've been told since you were young that a woman's soul lives close to the surface of her cheeks, just beneath the skin, always trembling. So you must not scratch it. You must not rub it raw. But you must clean it with reverence, and only with something soft and sanctified by fire and food, bread crusts left out under the full moon and kissed with vinegar on St. Gertrude's Day. You lower yourself onto the bench beside the fireplace and unwrap the crusts with care. The vinegar has steeped into them well. They're damp and just beginning to fuzz at the edges with white mold. That's good. That means they've matured properly. Mold, they say, draws out spirits, hiding in the skin, tiny malevolent things that whisper nonsense into your dreams and settle in the hollows of your temples. You lift one crust, break it in half, and begin to gently scrub your cheek in slow circular motions. The texture is abrasive, but forgiving, like the voice of your mother, when she was tired, but still patient. Each stroke leaves behind a faint tang of sourness. You close your eyes and imagine the little spirits rising up and away, dissolving into the warm air like morning fog. This is your form of beauty. This is your shield. Across town, you know that other women do the same. Not just the washerwomen or the herbalists, or the girl with the lazy eye who sells duck eggs by the well, but even the baker's wife with her embroidered sleeves and proud chin. Even she keeps her moldy crusts in a jar near the window, hidden behind the dried lavender. She won't admit it aloud, but once you saw her patting her face with a crust while mouthing a silent chant under her breath. Everyone does it. even those who claim to know better. Historians still argue whether bread crust scrubbing had its roots in practical exfoliation or deeper superstitions about absorbing sin through food, particularly bread, considered sacred even outside of church walls. You hum as you work. It's not a song with words, just a low sound that rumbles from your chest and makes the crust move in rhythm with your breath. Your left cheek tingles. That's a sign it's working. Your right cheek stays numb. That's a sign you're still holding on to something heavy. Maybe an old resentment. Maybe the ghost of a forgotten shame. When the scrubbing is done, you take a second piece and hold it over your eyes, letting it rest for just a moment on the lids. Bread draws dreams toward the surface, they say. A woman who forgets her dreams forgets her power. The longer you live in this town, the more you believe it. Not because you're weak-minded, but because some things happen too often to be coincidence. You wipe your hands on the hem of your dress and set the soiled crusts aside. They must never be thrown away. No, that would be disrespectful to the bread spirit. You'll bury them later at the base of the elder tree, as is custom wrapped in wool string and face toward the sunrise. Next, you reach for the sprig of thyme you bought this morning. It's dry, a bit brittle, but still sharp with scent. You crush the leaves gently between your fingers and mix them into a paste with a few drops of lard and the end of a boiled carrot. This mixture, absurd as it sounds, is your lip balm. It keeps the mouth from going sour in sleep and softens the words you speak to others. You smooth the thick greenish-orange paste across your lips and press them together twice, no more, no less. This is a town of rules, and behind every rule is a reason no one questions too hard. As you sit there letting the smells of vinegar thyme and cooling ash settle into your skin, you begin to notice the stillness of the house around you. The walls are quiet, and outside, only the faint clinking of a cart and the bark of a dog break the silence. It's a rare lull in a world of constant movement, so you breathe it in this pause. You allow yourself to imagine another world, one where women wash daily with lavender soap, where mirrors show the truth without distortion, and where crusty bread is only eaten, not used to scour away invisible curses. But even as you dream it, you feel a part of yourself clinging tightly to the rituals you know. Because they give shape to your day. Because they tether you to the women who came before you. And because, if you're being honest, you like how your skin glows a little after the vinegar dries. Outside, the light has shifted. The shadows grow longer across the courtyard, and somewhere, someone begins boiling cabbage for supper. You stretch your arms, roll your shoulders, and return the last crust to its cloth wrapping. The ritual is complete. You are clean now, not in the way others might define it, but in the way your grandmother would smile and nod at. Tomorrow will bring another ritual, another reason not to wash, another layer of belief. But for now, your cheeks tingle, your breath smells faintly of herbs and vinegar, and your heart oddly feels quiet. By midweek, the rumors begin to drift through the town like smoke curling from a damp chimney. Someone in the far end of Market Lane is ill, very ill, and not the kind of ill that responds to willow bark or boiled beet syrup. No, this one is worse. The kind of sick that settles in the chest, and when the coughing starts, it echoes through the thin walls of every house nearby. You don't know her well. She's the cousin of a tanner's wife, or maybe the baker's niece. What matters more is what's about to happen to her. Because when a woman becomes that sick, the townsfolk gather their old bottles and buckets and begin preparing what they call a cleansing bath, of beer and herbs. It's not meant to cure her. It's meant to give the body one last chance to fight or surrender. You've never seen one done before, not in full anyway, but you've heard plenty. Women talk in hushed voices while grinding grain or stirring stew. The bath is brewed like a potion, dark ale boiled down with sprigs of marjoram thyme and wormwood. Sometimes they add garlic. Sometimes rose petals if it's a child. But for a grown woman, bitter herbs only. The theory is simple, even if the logic is not. If the skin can drink the warmth of barley and the sting of green oils, maybe the sickness will rise out through the pores, drawn like poison into steam. Historians still argue whether beer baths were rooted in practical antiseptic value or simply acted as symbolic purging rituals for the soul before death. You are sent with a jug of old ale to the healer's cottage, a narrow wooden shack that smells perpetually of wet wool and beeswax. As you approach, the door is already open. The sick woman lies on a straw pallet, pale as frost. Her fingers twitch now and then, but her eyes stay shut. You're not allowed to speak to her. You're only here to help carry water. In the center of the room, the healer, a woman known simply as Marta, has placed a large copper tub. It has been polished with vinegar and ash. Two other women work beside her, one grating herbs into a mortar, the other tending the fire that heats the stones. You're given a task: stir the beer as it boils. You grip the wooden spoon and watch as bubbles rise slowly to the surface, dark and pungent. The scent is overwhelming, half alehouse, half forest floor. You try not to gag. A warm haze begins to fill the room, mingling with the smoke from the hearth and the wet, earthy fragrance of steeping plants. Once the bath is ready, the women lift the sick girl carefully, gently into the tub. Her shift is left on, clinging to her thin form. The heat is intense. Her skin flushes almost instantly, and for a moment, her lips part. A faint sound escapes like a sigh or a memory. You back away, taking your place near the wall, where a bucket of lavender water sits untouched. That is for the end, if the bath fails. No one speaks. Marta begins to hum, soft, low rhythmic. The others join in. It is not a song you know, though you catch familiar fragments. Leave the body whole, let the fever go seal the skin from below. It continues for what feels like hours. The girl twitches. She moans. The water darkens. And finally, she is lifted out limp and soaked, her breath shallow but steady. They wrap her in wool and lay her by the hearth. The bath is poured out into the alley, where it steams against the cobblestones like something half alive. You watch as the beer seeps into the ground, mixing with old blood and melting frost. No one will walk there until morning. The experience follows you home that night as you rinse your hands with leftover vinegar and salt. You consider the logic behind what you witnessed. Was it healing? Was it farewell? Or was it just tradition, done not because it works, but because not doing it would feel like a sin? You ask your neighbor, an older woman with cracked heels and a voice like gravel, if she's ever had a beer bath. She snorts and replies, "Only once. And it wasn't for sickness. It was for my wedding." Apparently, in some corners of the kingdom, a similar ritual was performed for brides before their first night. Though the herbs were sweeter, the candles more romantic. She doesn't elaborate further. The juxtaposition strikes you, that the same ritual might be used to welcome a woman to love or to death, The next day, you pass the healer's house again and see the sick girl's mother sweeping the step. No black cloth over the door, so that means she lived through the night. You exhale in relief, though you're not sure why. You didn't know her, but the thought of her surviving the bath makes something inside you feel a little sturdier. That evening, as you boil lentils and strip a few leaves of basil from your windowsill pot, you try to imagine what it might be like to immerse yourself in something hot and bitter. Not water, not tea, but a bath brewed with the history of grains and the sharpness of wild herbs. Would it sting? Would it soothe? You picture yourself sinking into such a tub, your limbs heavy, the air thick with steam and memory. You imagine the songs the women would hum over you, the flickering shadows on the wall, the smell of smoke and sweetness in the air. You wonder if you would emerge changed or simply cleaner in ways no one else could see. And for a fleeting moment, you almost wish you were sick, just enough to try it once. But then the thought passes like a cloud over the moon, and you return to your pot of lentils, stirring with the same spoon you used to mix the face paste 2 days ago. Everything in this house has more than one purpose. Every object holds layers of meaning. The air is cool tonight. You rub your arms and move closer to the hearth. You'll sleep without washing. Not out of superstition this time, but out of quiet reverence for the sick girl, for the healer, for the women who boiled beer like a sacrament and whispered strength into the steam. Morning returns slowly, with a pale gray light that creeps across the windowsill and settles on your wooden chest. You wake not to the sound of bells or voices, but to the scent of last night's fire mingled with something sweeter rosemary, perhaps, or old apple peels drying in a pot. The room is still. The warmth from the embers has faded, and the wool blanket over your shoulders is not enough to stop the small shiver that rises from your arms. You stretch gently, mindful of the ache in your back from yesterday's lifting and standing, and ease your feet onto the cold floor. Today, there is a fair. You can already hear distant wheels creaking over stone as carts begin to roll toward the square. But first, there is your morning routine and what lies hidden just beneath your sleeves. You've known this ritual since girlhood passed down from women who never explained why, only how. It is about the armpits, not the face, not the hands. The armpits, they say, are where secrets are stored. The scent that lingers there hidden from casual glances is said to reveal your truest nature. A clean scent, mild and herby, means you're balanced, aligned, appeasing to spirits to mend to yourself. But if it goes sour, sharp, or metallic, well then something is wrong. You are out of alignment, and worse, you're vulnerable. So you take out the bundle you prepared the night before, a small square of cloth with dried herbs stitched into its folds, lavender, rosemary, and lemon balm. The stitching is old but intact. You unroll it carefully and remove 2 pressed wads of dried plant material wrapped in linen roughly the size of quail eggs. You press one beneath each arm. The pressure is slight but firm, like a quiet reminder of something holy. The scent rises, slowly released by your body's warmth, not too strong, not too quick. You cover it with your shift and then your overdress, making sure nothing shifts out of place. You walk carefully the rest of the morning, mindful of the delicate bundles tucked against your skin. Historians still argue whether these bundles served as deodorant protection against illness or simply psychological comfort, a ritual born from centuries of bodily anxiety and spiritual metaphors. But for you, it's practical. Your neighbor's husband once claimed that a woman's armpits could trap evil thoughts if left unguarded. Another old tale insists that witches stored memory spells under their arms, and that's why they always smelled of smoke and fennel. Whatever the reason, no woman in this town goes to the fair without her underarm sachets. It is as essential as coin, as blessing, as breath. You tie your belt and grab your basket, walking with care down the cobbled road toward the town center. The chill of the morning fades as the fair warms to life booths, opening tents, rising children darting between legs. You pass the fishmonger, the blacksmith's boy, and a red-haired girl selling onions by the string. All greet you with the same brief knowing glance, the subtle nod shared by women who carry the same leafy armor beneath their sleeves. You spot a cluster of women gathered around a mirror, set on a cart, an oddity in this town. A merchant from the coast sells polished glass from Venice. His voice is too loud, his smile too bright. See yourselves. As the angels do, he calls. You pause, watching the women giggle as they peer into their own reflections, patting their cheeks, adjusting their headscarves, straightening collars. But none of them dare raise their arms. You smile quietly at the thought. Even in a mirror meant to flatter, there are things better left concealed. As the day draws on the scent beneath your arms, changes slightly. The herbs grow warm. The rosemary becomes sharper. The lavender fades. You worry briefly. Have you sweated too much? Has something shifted? You duck behind a tent, pretending to inspect bolts of fabric and quickly adjust the sachets. A vendor gives you a curious glance, but says nothing. Later, as you return home, you notice that your skin under your arms feels tender, not raw, just aware. As if it too remembers the weight of tradition. You remove the sachets and unwrap them over the hearth. The linen is damp with your body's heat. The herbs, now spent, fall apart in your hands. You gather the pieces into a small dish and set them near the fire to dry. Tomorrow, they will be crumbled and added to your next foot soak. Nothing is wasted here, not even secrets. You lift your arms and sniff gently. There is still something pleasant there, earthy, faintly sour, but not unpleasant. A sign that the day passed without imbalance. You lean back, close your eyes, and feel the scent settle into your chest. It is a strange thing how a bundle of plants could give such a sense of safety. But maybe it's not so strange. After all, you live in a town where people believe that cutting your nails at sunset invites nightmares, and that combing your hair without whispering a prayer can summon ghosts. Compared to that, tucking rosemary under your arm feels sensible. The light dims beyond the window. You sip a cup of thin broth and pull a wool shawl over your shoulders. Your muscles ache in a familiar, comfortable way. The sachets, now dry, sit quietly beside the fire, waiting to be ground. You promise yourself to add mint next time, just a pinch, and with that, your body exhales. You survived another day, hidden, herb-scented, protected. Tomorrow, you will begin again. The next morning, the sun rises in a spill of pale gold across the warm wooden beams of your ceiling, and you wake with a vague taste of smoke and sour milk in your mouth. Not unpleasant, just expected, normal. It's the kind of morning flavor everyone in this town seems to wake with, like part of the weather. You smack your lips softly and sit up with a slow roll of the shoulders, wondering for the briefest moment how your breath might smell if your life had taken a different path. Say as a lady's maid in a big stone house where mint leaves are boiled and poured over clean linen, But you are not a lady's maid. You are yourself. And your morning cleansing must begin with tooth powder. You pull open the tiny oak box that sits beside your bed, an old jewelry container, now repurposed for hygiene. Inside, a powder, the color of charcoal and bone, rests in a neat pile. It is homemade, of course. You crushed the oyster shells yourself last spring, after a fishmonger owed your aunt a favor. You mixed in ashes from the Yule log and a pinch of dried moss from behind the well. Some women in town swear by powdered brick, but you've always found it too gritty, too aggressive. There's no toothbrush. That's not how it's done. Instead, you use a rag. A strip of linen torn from your sister's ruined shift, boiled clean and dried in the sun. You dampen it in a cup of stale ale water, doesn't cling to the powder well enough, and dip it into the mixture with a careful swirl. The powder clings like soot to the cloth, and with your other hand, you begin to gently rub it over your teeth. Back and forth, tiny circles, not too hard. The grit of the shells presses against the enamel with a texture like beach sand and burnt leaves. You close your eyes and focus on the motion. The taste is sharp, salty with a faint echo of fish. The ashes tinge it bitter. You tell yourself this is the flavor of health. It is said that a woman's breath is her reputation. A sharp scent means sharp words. A mild scent means mild manners. And no scent, that means danger. An invisible woman is not to be trusted, so you scrub every crevice carefully. Historians still argue whether medieval tooth powders provided any real protection from decay, or if they simply offered a sense of control in a world where dental pain was a constant specter. You remember the story of Agnes, a woman who refused to powder her teeth after her husband died. Said it was pointless, that no one was close enough to care. Within weeks, her gums turned black and her breath frightened dogs. Or so the story went. You were just a child, but you've never forgotten the lesson. Never neglect the rituals, no matter how small. When the powdering is done, you rinse your mouth with a sip of salt water that has been sitting overnight in a copper dish. There's a green tinge to the bottom from the copper oxide, but that's good. Green metal wards off decay. The water tastes like a coin. You spit into the hearth. Then, as tradition demands, you place the used rag on a warm stone to dry. You must not fold it. You must not reuse it until tomorrow. And under no circumstance should it touch the floor, or it will learn the smell of the underworld. Outside, the town begins to stir. You can hear the clop of hooves on the cobblestones, the first church bell, the cry of the bread seller. Life goes on, breath by breath, ritual by ritual. You tie your apron and step outside where the air is damp and full of wood smoke. You pass neighbors without speaking, though you nod in the way women do. Hear a short bob of the head, enough to say, "I see you," but not so much to invite conversation. Passing by the old widow's cottage, you catch a faint whiff of wild thyme and sour milk. She's likely burning something to cleanse her chimney. You make a note to ask her what she uses in her smoke bundles. You've been meaning to add something new to yours. At the square, you overhear two women whispering near the well. One of them has lost a tooth, and the other recommends boiling willow bark and chewing it nightly. But only if you haven't already chewed rue this week, she warns. Otherwise, the roots of your teeth might loosen. You make a mental note to avoid rue, just in case. Later that afternoon, you take shelter from the drizzle beneath the awning of the candle shop. The woman beside you smells faintly of sage and bloodroot. She offers you a sprig of dried mint for your next tooth powder batch, claiming it's been blessed by a traveling monk. You accept it, politely tucking it into your satchel between a piece of beeswax and an egg. You smile to yourself as the rain softens and you head home. That night before sleep, you open the box of powder again. Just a little, you think. Just a dab for peace. You scrub the front teeth only, the ones people see. You press your tongue to them. Afterward, they feel smooth, clean, even if not white. You inhale through your nose, then exhale slowly through your mouth. There's no perfume, no paste, no promise of minty breath. But there's something honest in this taste shell and fire and earth, the very bones of your ritual. You lie back in bed, pull your shawl to your chin, and close your eyes with a faint trace of burnt oyster shell lingering behind your lips. You are not a lady's maid, but your teeth are strong. And tomorrow you will smile when you speak. The moon is waxing tonight, hanging high above the chimney stacks like a watchful silver eye. You notice it as you step outside to fetch firewood, its pale glow cutting across the rooftops in quiet lines. In your town, the moon means more than light. It governs blood. It governs the womb. And tonight your body answers it. The first ache in your lower back tells you it's begun. The familiar pulse in your thighs, the warmth spreading low and slow. You wrap your shawl tighter and mutter under your breath. Not a curse, never a curse, but a line from a chant you've known since your mother whispered it to you in the dark. Let it pass. Let it cleanse. Let the moon take what is hers. You return inside, set the firewood down, and begin to prepare. The bleeding days require a different rhythm, a shift in routine. Everything changes. What you eat, how you walk, where you sleep, and most importantly, what you say. Because in this town, when a woman bleeds, she sings. It is not a song meant to be heard by others. It is not loud nor melodic. It is a chant, almost a hum shaped more by breath than by voice. And the words don't always make sense. They come from old dialects, from fragments passed down, layered with symbols and secrets. Some women change the words. Some say nothing at all. But you sing. You begin with the first verse as you prepare the cloth strips of wool boiled and dried, folded into perfect thirds. You heat a kettle with rosemary water and soak a few leaves of mugwort, which is said to help with pain and keep dreams clean. As the steam rises, so does your voice, low and steady. Blood from moon, not from harm, flow with peace, leave me warm. You hold the tune in your throat as you press the cloths against your belly. The warmth soothes. The smell of mugwort fills the room, sharp green and bitter. You lie back on your bed knees, slightly bent hands, resting flat on your hips. You close your eyes and keep singing. Historians still argue whether these chants were actual medicinal practices or simply communal rituals, ways to give women agency over a process they were otherwise taught to fear. But you believe the song helps, not just with the ache in your belly, but with the heaviness in your chest. This time of month always brings strange emotions, waves of sorrow and joy memory, and yearning drifting in and out like tides. The chant anchors you. It reminds you that you are not the first nor the last to feel this exact thing under this exact moon. The second verse comes as you massage your feet with lavender oil mixed with ashes from the hearth. An old woman once told you that blood leaves through the feet if the womb is blocked. You're not sure that's true, but you do it anyway. Let the path be clear and wide. Let the blood know where to hide. Some women claim that saying the chant backwards will stop the flow. Others believe it's dangerous to even speak of reversal. You stick to the old rhythm. You've never had a reason to break it. Outside, the wind picks up. A shutter rattles. A dog barks once and falls silent. You light a candle, not for light, but for timing. You're told that each song should last from wax to wax, just the time it takes for a single drip to fall. You watch it flicker your voice, soft, now fading into something like breath. In the corner, your niece ships in her sleep. She's 12, almost ready for her first moon bleed. You've seen the signs, the moodiness, the appetite for pickled things, the way she watches the other women. You'll teach her the chant soon. Not all of it, just the first line. The rest will come later as it did for you. Your belly cramps again. You shift, slightly tighten your shawl around your waist, and hum instead of singing now. Later, you will bury the used cloths behind the herb patch. You'll burn a sprig of rue over them, then whisper thanks to the moon for taking what was not needed. The burying is important. If you burn the cloths directly, it's said the smoke will carry your fertility into the air. And whoever breathes it may steal your future children. So you bury it. Always. You drink the last of the rosemary tea and let the warmth settle low in your stomach. You are tired, but not miserable. Heavy, but not broken. This is your rhythm. This is your time. As you drift towards sleep, one last verse hovers on your lips. Not a chant this time, but a lullaby reshaped to fit the bleeding days. Sleep now, womb of red and song, your pain is deep, but not for long. You feel the pulse again in your hips. It no longer hurts. It simply reminds you that you are still here, still bleeding, still whole. And when the moonlight slants across your window, you do not flinch. You whisper one final line, let the moon take what is hers, and you rest. Morning again, but this one arrives sluggishly, dragging its feet through a drizzle that streaks your windows with crooked lines. The hearth is damp, the coals cold, and your joints ache as you stretch. It's a spitting day. That's what the older women call it. Not for the rain, but for the ritual. You rise shuffle to the corner of the room, where the soap pot waits like a clay sentinel, and you feel the heaviness in your mouth. Not thirst, not hunger. The sensation that something, a thought, a feeling, a night's worth of dreams needs to be expelled. So you hawk, gently drawing from the back of your throat and spit into the soap pot. Not once, 3 times. Always 3. The soap pot is wide and squat, with a rim crusted from years of use. Inside it is a slurry of hardened fats, wood ash, old herbs, and sometimes crushed eggshells. It smells vaguely like smoke-spoiled milk and lavender depending on the day. And each morning before it's stirred, it must be spit in. No one questions this, not even the healer. It is simply known a soap pot without spit will never lather. It won't bind. It will reject the ash. It will turn sour. The spit, they say, is what makes the whole thing human, what connects the cleanser to the cleansed. You kneel by the pot place, both hands on its rim, and stare into the viscous paste. The 3 beads of your own saliva float like pearls glistening. You exhale slowly and whisper the same words you always do. This is my offering. May the dirt be kind. Historians still argue whether spitting into soap mixtures had symbolic significance or if it originated as an accidental preservative technique. But in your home, it's sacred. You reach for the long wooden paddle and begin to stir. The motion is slow, circular, clockwise only. Stirring widdershins is for cursed soap, used rarely and never stored indoors. You keep the rhythm, even thinking of your grandmother's gnarled hands wrapped around the same handle years ago, muttering about how spit held memory, how it told the fat what to remember and what to release. As the soap begins to thicken, you add a pinch of fresh ash from last night's fire and a few dried mint leaves. It hisses faintly as the ash hits the warm paste. You nod to yourself. That's a good sign. You will not have to redo the batch. You ladle a scoop into a small bowl and place it near the hearth to cool. This will be today's cleansing batch, the one you use on your hands before kneading bread on your forearms, before touching herbs, and later on your feet before bed. Soap made this way doesn't foam. It smears like ointment. But it smells like something ancient, something trusted. You look around and realize your niece has been watching from the stairs. She's silent, wide-eyed, her nightdress hanging off one shoulder. She says nothing, but you see the question in her face. Why do you do it? Why spit? You answer without looking up. Because I carry the stories of what touched me yesterday. And today, I must decide what to wash away and what to keep. She nods, not quite understanding, but not resisting either. Later that day, you hear laughter from the square. The children have discovered a soap cellar with cakes wrapped in linen pressed with flowers. Imported from the South, they say. From people who wash for pleasure. You smile but don't approach. You know better than to trust soap that doesn't know you. That night, after the bread is rising and the kitchen is still, you return to the hearth. You dip 2 fingers into the cooled soap and rub it along your collarbones. The skin there is always tense, where words gather, where shoulders carry the weight of days. You massage, gently humming a tune that isn't a chant but close enough. The soap spreads grainy and warm, and you feel the tension dissolve. Afterward, you place the lid over the soap pot and tap it 3 times, once for cleansing, once for remembering, once for letting go. The pot will rest overnight, absorbing the weight of your day, and tomorrow morning, you'll spit again. Not because it's pretty, not because it's pleasant, but because it works. Sunset settles over the rooftops like a slow exhale, casting long amber streaks through the slats in your shutters. The golden hour. The hour of beauty, yes, but also of boundaries. For in your town there are things you simply do not do once the light begins to bend and the crows start calling from the chapel roof. And cleaning your nails is one of them. You glance down at your fingers, rough from scrubbing turnips and stripping cabbage leaves. Dirt has gathered under the nails again, not deep, but visible. A thin, black crescent beneath each one, like the outline of a secret kept too long. You reach almost automatically for your small bone, pick the one carved from a sheep's rib and polished smooth by years of use. But you stop, not because you remember, but because the air reminds you. It has shifted. It carries the weight of stillness, the quiet pause between day and night, when according to every woman you've ever known, the soul settles into the fingertips. If you clean them now, you might scrape it away. So you sit back the bone pick, resting on your thigh, and listen to the house creak in the warmth. Outside, a dog barks once and then goes silent. A bell rings from the far end of town. Your niece sings softly to her doll, but even her song slows, as if the world itself has agreed to hold its breath. "Don't touch your nails," your mother used to whisper, half scolding, half begging, "not at this hour." That's when the soul curls up inside them like a mouse hiding in a boot. If you prod it, it'll flee and you'll be hollow all night. You used to laugh at that. You don't anymore. Historians still argue whether the fear of grooming at twilight stems from infection risks or older pagan beliefs about bodily boundaries and the shifting veil between seen and unseen. But in your bones, you believe it. Not with fear, not anymore, but with a kind of reverence. You set the bone pick aside and instead pick up the lavender cloth that hangs by the hearth. You use it to wrap your fingers gently one at a time, pressing the fabric around the nails like you're tucking them in for sleep. The ritual doesn't clean them, but it soothes them. It's said that wrapping the hands at sunset preserves their warmth for the dreams ahead, that whatever you hold in your sleep will come more easily if your fingers are cared for before the dark. And dreams, after all, matter in this town. You remember how old Tilda down the lane once clipped her nails after sundown and claimed she dreamt of her own funeral for 3 nights straight. She swore it was the nail trimmings, how they curled like pale question marks on the floor, asking the spirits to notice her. Ever since, she's worn gloves to bed, even in summer. You sit a while longer, watching the fire dim. The light outside is almost gone, now replaced by shadow and the faint glimmer of the rising moon. You breathe in deeply, your hands still wrapped, and feel the day's grind become less important. It can wait. The world will not end if your nails stay dirty one more night. Instead, you reach for the tiny pot of scented oil beside your bed lard, mixed with marigold and a hint of rosemary. You dip a finger in and rub a dot on each cuticle slowly, methodically. It's not cleaning, it's care, and that makes all the difference. You hum while you work, not a chant this time, but a melody with no words, a tune passed down from the women who knew when to clean and when to wait. You imagine them sitting in houses, just like this one, waiting for darkness to fall, whispering stories and soft warnings into the firelight. One of them, you recall, used to say that dreams don't come from the mind, they come through the hands. That the fingers must be still and soft when you sleep, or the dreams will scratch their way out and vanish before morning. So you sit and wait and protect your dreams. Later, when your niece asks why your nails are still dirty, you'll smile and say, "Because tonight I wanted to hold something more important." You wake with a sharp ache between your shoulders just beneath the right shoulder blade. Not the kind that comes from carrying water buckets or sleeping curled on your side. It's deeper than that. More stubborn. It feels almost personal. Like something old has settled into the muscles, like a memory you never asked for, but now must carry. You wince as you reach for your shift fingers, tracing the sore spot. It's not red, not swollen, but it hums beneath the skin like a low warning bell. You consider fetching willow bark tea, maybe a rub with hot cloths, but then you remember what Marta said last spring when your cousin had a similar pain in her neck. "Try cheese," she'd murmured, as if sharing a secret. Not fresh, not soft, moldy. The greener the better. Let it rot like regret and press it where it hurts. If the pain is honest, it'll rise to meet the mold. If it's deceitful, it'll vanish before dawn. So you reach into the pantry, past the hanging herbs and bundled onions, and find what you need: a wedge of old goat cheese wrapped in cloth and tinged with green around the edges. It smells like something lost and found again. Strong, pungent, alive. You carry it back to your bed like a relic. The cloth is cold damp from the chill of the pantry stones. You unwrap it carefully and press the molded side to your back, tucking the wedge just beneath your shift snug against the ache. The shock of cold makes you gasp, but you hold it there, breathing slowly, letting your body decide if this is remedy or madness. Historians still argue whether moldy cheese was ever truly used as medicine, or if its presence in healing rituals came from its symbolic connection to decay, to time, to nature's quiet violence. But in your town, it's a common cure. You lie on your side, the cheese wedged against your back, and wait. The smell is overwhelming, tangy and damp like storm-soaked hay and forgotten soup. It seeps into your hair, your pillows, your breath, but you don't move. You've learned that part of the cure is staying still, letting the mold do its work, letting it speak to the sickness. Some women say the cheese absorbs the pain, that you can see it in the patterns of the mold afterward, tiny dark veins that mirror the knots in your flesh. Others believe the mold frightens the pain away, like a predator chasing off a weaker beast. You don't know which story you believe more. You pass the time by humming slow and low the same tune from last night. Your hands rest loosely in your lap. Your eyes close, not in sleep, but in stillness. This kind of healing isn't about sleep. It's about suspension, about giving your body time to choose health instead of forcing it. Your niece peeks in at one point and recoils. "It stinks," she whispers. You smile. So does sickness. Later, when the sun is higher and the fire has been fed, you remove the cheese. Carefully, reverently. The mold has darkened in places. The wedge is warm, now soft and damp. You hold it in your hands, like something sacred or cursed, and wrap it back in its cloth. You do not throw it away. No, that would be foolish. You bury it. You carry it outside past the chickens and the stone wall to a patch of earth where nettles grow. You dig a small hole with your fingers and press the cheese into the dirt, then cover it gently, whispering the old phrase, pain to earth, pain to mold, pain to none. You rub your back and find to your quiet surprise that the ache is softer now, not gone, but gentler, as if it has been spoken to, as if it was heard. You return inside and boil water for tea, not willow bark, but nettle and thyme, just to be sure. As you sip, you wonder how many of your rituals work by medicine and how many by memory. How many things you believe because they were whispered to you, not because they were proven. But does it matter? You are breathing easier now. Your shoulders no longer feel like they carry stones. The scent of mold still lingers on your skin, but you find that you don't mind it. It reminds you that healing doesn't always come wrapped in silk or sweetness. Sometimes it smells like rot, and sometimes rot is exactly what you need. It's just after breakfast when you feel it, the dry, tight sting of cracked heels catching on the edge of your wool stocking. You wince instinctively, pressing your foot harder against the floor, as if friction might smooth it. But of course, it doesn't. You already know what you have to do. You wait until your niece and the neighbor boy have gone out to chase chickens, and until the wash basin is empty of breakfast scraps. You wipe your hands on your apron, roll up your sleeves, and go to the back of the house to the privy, because in your town, when the heels crack, the cure doesn't come from creams, or rest, or prayers. It comes from the ashes in the toilet. The chamber pot, when emptied into the ash pit beside the privy, becomes a treasure trove of medicine. Not the waste, of course, that's buried, but the ashes that coat the bottom afterward, warm gray mixed with soot, and the faintest scent of something human. Those are gathered with care. Everyone knows a well-fed woman leaves behind useful ash. You take your little iron scoop and sift through yesterday's privy pit. The top layer is dry. The ash underneath is warm, clumpy. You scrape just enough into your tin, 2 small scoops, then turn to the garden wall, where an old brick lies broken in half. You sit beside it and begin to scrape. Brick dust gathers like cinnamon into the tin. It falls in soft red flakes. Some women in town use crushed pottery shards. Others swear by terracotta, but you trust this brick. It came from your grandmother's house, the corner hearth that never let a stew burn. She said it remembered the shape of heat, and that made it healing. Historians still argue whether these practices had basis in mineral absorption, or if they were rituals of symbolism using clean ash and strong stone to repair the broken body. Once the powder is ready, you add a pinch of lard to bind it. You mix it with your fingers until it forms a paste the color of old rust and warm bone. It smells like smoke and dust and a hint of something bitter like dignity softened with time. Back inside, you set the bowl near the fire and place your heels onto a rag. You spread the paste thick like icing coating every crack and ridge. The sensation is strange, warm, then cool, then warm again, as if your feet are drinking in the memory of fire and stone. You close your eyes and let your head fall back. For a moment, you forget the draft under the door, the squeak of mice in the rafters, the bills that haven't been paid in salt or onions. There is only the feeling of being held from the bottom up. And then, like every ritual, there is the wait. You must not walk while the paste dries. You must not speak sharply. And you must not let anyone laugh near your feet. They say joy disturbs the settling of ash. So you sit quietly pressing your soles together and humming something soft. Your niece tiptoes in and sees you. She grins. Is that poo ash? You nod, eyes closed. Does it work? You open one eye. Touch the heels of the baker's wife and tell me what you feel. She nods solemnly and disappears. You smile. When the paste dries, it flakes off in pale curls, leaving behind skin that feels new. Not baby soft, not perfect, but whole. The cracks are filled, the soreness eased. You rub in a final layer of goat tallow and tug your stockings back on. The rest of the day is ordinary, sweeping, boiling, kneading, but you walk with a new kind of quiet strength. Your feet do not catch or tear or sting. They carry, and they carry with them the strange wisdom of fire waste and stone. You pass the brick on your way to bed and pat it once like a friend. You're stirring soup when the memory hits you, not yours, but your mother's. You see her clearly seated by the hearth in the half light, her fingers blackened with soot, and her voice low, with warning. A bare eyelid tells no lies, but it sees none either. She would smear soot under her eyes every feast day, every funeral, every market gathering. Not to seduce, no, not even to beautify, but to shield. Soot is your eyeshadow. It's not fancy. It's not made from ground pearls or bee balm. It's what remains after things burn, after the logs have collapsed into themselves and left behind only the softest, darkest residue. You've used it since girlhood, never once questioned its presence in your small brass mirror. Today feels like a soot day, not because you need to be seen, but because you don't want to be read. The town is restless. A tax collector passed through this morning, and women have been whispering in alleys ever since. Something is coming, they say. Maybe a new priest. Maybe plague. Maybe just another proclamation. Whatever it is, you don't want it looking into your soul through your eyes. So when the bread is set to rise, and your niece is busy stitching clumsy red flowers into a scrap of linen, you step into the hearth's softest corner and gather your tools, a bit of clean linen, a pinch of grease, and a smooth iron spoon, warmed just slightly near the embers. You lift the blackened pot from last night's stew, still crusted with soot around the base, and scrape gently, collecting just enough powder to coat the spoon's underside. You mix it with the grease until it becomes a paste, dark and pliant. Your fingers are sure. They always are with this. The mirror is dull, but it's enough. You dip 2 fingers, middle and ring, and draw the line beneath each eye with one smooth stroke. Not too thick, not theatrical, just present. Just enough to blur the white. Your gaze in the mirror shifts. It's still yours, but armored now. Your eyes feel deeper somehow, not in shape, but in energy, like wells with shadows at the bottom. Historians still argue whether soot-lined eyes were an inherited Eastern practice meant to deflect sunlight, or an indigenous form of spiritual camouflage, a barrier between emotion and the world. In your town, though, it's simpler. Soot keeps people from seeing what you're really thinking. You step outside and instantly feel the difference. People look at you, but not too long. They nod politely, but no one pries. The butcher's daughter, who normally asks nosy questions about your niece, averts her eyes. Even the priest's wife says only peace upon you and doesn't linger. You walk the market square with a sort of softness inside, protected by the quiet shield that a fingertip's worth of ash has given you. Near the herb cart, you see another woman, Agneta, also wearing soot. Hers is more dramatic, nearly theatrical, with lines drawn like wings at the outer edges of her lids. A statement, a warning. She's been mourning her sister for months now. You nod to her. She nods back. Nothing else is needed. The soot has already spoken for you both. By midday, your fingers begin to itch, and you remember not to rub your eyes. The grease will smear, and that would invite misinterpretation, make you look tired. Or worse, make it seem like you're trying to hide something instead of simply protecting it. You return home, wash your hands with salt water and mint, and sit by the window, watching shadows stretch across the cobblestones. You feel calmer, not because the soot has fixed anything, but because it gave you space, a little pocket of silence between your gaze and the world. Later, before the bread is sliced, you take a moment to clean it off. You heat the same spoon, let it dry, then dab at the soot with the edge of your linen cloth, whispering the usual phrase. Burned things don't cling forever. You press the cloth to your eyes and wipe carefully. The skin beneath feels warm, as if the soot remembered something for you and has now let it go. You look at your reflection once more. Your eyes are bare again, vulnerable, but you feel stronger, more there. Not because you covered them, but because you chose when to show them. And that your mother always said is the whole point of the soot. It's not about hiding, it's about timing. The sky has turned heavy, low, and gray, and you can smell the rain before it begins sweet and sharp like iron and moss. The kind of rain that falls straight without wind or anger. A good rain, the kind you've been waiting for. You step outside slowly, palms open to the air, waiting for the first drops. When they come, They're fat and cold, plopping against your skin like a benediction. You tip your head back and breathe deeply. Today, you'll wash your hair, but not in the river. Never in the river. In your town, rain is sacred. Rain is clean. Rain is heaven's leftover soup dripped just for you. But rivers are gossiping things. They remember every foot that stepped in them, every secret washed from flesh. A woman who rinses her head in the river is said to forget her name by morning. So you wait for the third day of good rain. That's the rule. Not the first, too eager. Not the second, too soon. But the third rain says the heavens have been softened enough to offer their water for healing, not just cleansing. And your hair needs both. You untie the scarf around your head and shake your hair free. It's heavy, tangled, and streaked with soot and flour and the faint scent of yesterday's onions. You haven't washed it in. Well, you've lost count. But your scalp itches like it's remembering things it doesn't want to. You fetch the special bowl, the rain bowl. It's made from pewter and dented at the base, handed down from your grandmother, and only used for rain hair washing. If anyone touches it between washings, the water will sour. You set it in the open yard beneath the eaves and wait, watching the drops gather slowly rising silver. While it fills you, prepare your mixture. Crushed nettle leaves a pinch of salt, 2 drops of rosemary oil, and a sliver of lye soap shaved with a spoon. You don't mix it into the rain. No, you wait until the moment before washing to blend them. Rain doesn't like waiting. Rain wants to be used fresh. Historians still argue whether women in the Middle Ages avoided river washing out of fear of disease, religious symbolism, or social custom. But in your world, rivers are considered disloyal. You check the bowl. It's nearly full. You carry it inside like a holy offering and kneel by the hearth. You dip your fingers into the bowl, then into your hair, soaking the strands, little by little, murmuring softly the lines your mother taught you. Rain from sky fall through me. Wash what eyes should never see. You mix in the soap and nettles. The smell is sharp green, almost bitter. You don't mind. Bitter smells mean honest things. You lather gently, working from roots to ends until your scalp tingles with cold and clean. The water runs down your neck in rivulets pooling at your collarbone. You close your eyes, letting the sensation root you to the floor. The sounds of the outside world dim. For a few minutes, you are just rain and breath and hair. You rinse with the remaining water, careful not to let it fall back into the bowl. Dirty rainwater must never mix with the clean. That's how you invite confusion into the home. You patch your hair with an old linen cloth, one stitched long ago with a red thread through the hem. It's said that red thread protects your memories from being rinsed out. You believe it. You always have. Once dry, you braid your hair in 3 sections, past, present, and what you've yet to name. You rub in a touch of goose fat at the ends to seal the strands, then sprinkle the braid with dried chamomile petals for softness. You wrap it again in your scarf, not to hide it, but to keep the blessing close. Outside, the rain continues to fall. The children run through it with wooden shoes and shrieks of laughter, but you stay inside, now warm and solemn. Rain Hair Day is not for play. It is for clarity, for realigning the quiet places inside you that grew tangled and dry. Your niece comes in soaked and breathless. She smells like earth and joy and wet wool. She tugs at your skirt. "Auntie," she asks, "why don't we use the river like the boys do?" You kneel, press your hand gently to her damp curls and say, because the rain falls from nowhere but above. And some things should only come from what we trust. She nods, and you kiss her forehead. You look at your hands wrinkled from water, fragrant with herbs, faintly trembling from the ritual. And you smile. You are lighter now. Your hair is clean. Your name is still yours. It starts with the shedding, not your skin, not your teeth, your hair. You find strands on the pillow in the morning, curled like question marks. More than usual. Too many. Then in the comb, stuck in the teeth like forgotten threads. Then your niece notices. Auntie, your braid's thinner. You don't cry. You don't panic. You just nod and set the comb aside. You already know what must be done. You will need ox blood. It's not a remedy spoken aloud in polite company. The women who whisper it do so behind laundry lines and beneath the eaves of smoky kitchens. Even the herbalist in town won't admit it outright, though she keeps a ceramic jar just for storing the red. You've seen her carry it to the midwife once during a difficult birth. It's for strength, they say, for binding what's loose, for pulling the self back into the skin. You fetch your cloak and head to the butcher's stall early before the priests are on their rounds. The air is thick with the scent of wet hide and copper. Flies already hover. You greet the butcher's wife, who looks you up and down and simply asks for food or for feeling. Feeling, you reply. She nods once and hands you a small glass vial stoppered with wax wrapped in cloth. Don't waste it, she warns. Don't let the blood cool before it touches you. You carry it home like a child close to your chest, swaddled in the dark blue folds of your cloak. Historians still argue whether ox blood was ever actually used for scalp treatments, or whether its mention in rural texts is metaphor symbolizing vitality, life force, or sacrifice. But for your town, it's literal. It's warm red and still humming with the beast's final breath. You light a small fire, set your iron comb near the edge to warm and boil water laced with crushed rosemary and nettle, letting the steam curl up into your face. When the moment feels right, you unstopper the vial. The scent hits you first, earthy raw, slightly metallic. You pour a few drops into your palm and dip your fingers in. It's warm, almost hot. The blood remembers its source. You press your fingers to your scalp, parting the hair in lines, massaging gently. The sensation is electric, like your head recognizes the blood as something older than touch. Your fingers glide across your skin, slow and sure. You whisper with each motion, not a chant, but a plea. Stay with me. Return to me. Grow through me. The warmth seeps in. Your scalp tingles. Your cheeks flush. You use the warm comb. Next, dragging it gently through the strands, not to untangle, but to anchor. Each tooth pulls the blood deeper. You imagine it finding roots, speaking to the hairs at their base, reminding them to hold on. You do this for a full quarter hour until the blood dries slightly and leaves a dark sheen across your scalp. You do not wipe it off. You let it stay. Outside the town begins to stir. The bell rings, once low and slow. A cart rattles past your window. Somewhere bread is being baked. But you remain still, your fingers red-tipped, your mind quiet. You bind your hair into a loose braid and wrap it in cloth soaked with rosemary tea. The scent fights the iron tang, softens it. You lean back by the hearth and close your eyes. Later, you'll rinse with cold rainwater, but not yet. Now you wait. Your niece comes in, and pauses. She sniffs once, nose wrinkling. Why does it smell like stew? You laugh softly. Because I'm feeding my hair. She blinks. That's not real. You smile. Then don't tell it. You pat the cloth around your head and return to your weaving fingers, sticky but sure. You feel the ache in your scalp beginning to ease. There's warmth there now. There's weight. You don't know if the hair will grow faster. You don't care. What matters is that the ritual held. The blood listened, and maybe, just maybe, your braid won't feel so hollow next week. You feel it first as a snag, just a whisper of pain when your heel catches on the straw mat beside the bed. You glance down, flex your foot, and there it is, a split small, but sharp running like a tiny red mouth across the cracked skin. You sigh. You've seen worse, but this one speaks. It's time. You know better than to ignore it. A cracked heel in this town isn't just an inconvenience. It's a message. The old women say the soles of a woman's feet tell her story, how she walks through the world, how she carries burdens, how close she is to the grave. Deep cracks are signs you're leaking spirit. If you leave them untended, they say parts of you may escape without you even noticing. So, you do what you've always done. You gather the herbs, not just any herbs. These must be picked before noon, while the dew still clings to them like apology. You wrap yourself in your shawl and step into the garden, your feet still bare, despite the sting. The earth is cold. It speaks to you in silence. First, mugwort for closing the skin. Second, plantain leaf to soften the wound. Third, dead nettle, because nothing heals like something named for death. You crush them into a paste with a mortar carved from old ash wood. You add a drop of honey to bind it. Then, for good measure, you whisper your name into the mix, not loudly, just once. The heel must know who it's healing. Historians still argue whether herbal poultices for foot care were medical necessity or ritualistic acts of spiritual repair. But here they are both. You return to the house and stoke the fire. Warmth is vital. Cold air steals healing. You sit with your foot propped on a low stool, and gently, you smear the green-black paste into the crack. It stings. You welcome it. Pain means your body still notices. Then comes the wrapping, not cloth. Leaves. You take the soft, wide leaves of lamb's ear, known in your town as angel skin. You place one beneath the foot, one on top, binding them with a strip of flax soaked in rose water. You don't know where that part came from. Your mother did it, and so did her mother before her. The scent always reminds you of cool evenings and warm hands. When it's done, you sit back and breathe, and then you wait, because this part is not quick. You are not allowed to walk. You are not allowed to read. You are only allowed to sit and let the herbs do their work. You close your eyes and listen to the creak of the ceiling beams, the bubbling pot, the faint chirp of a bird that shouldn't still be singing at this hour. Your niece tiptoes in and sees your foot wrapped in leaves. "Is it bleeding?" she whispers. "No," you say, "but it was talking." She giggles. "I mean it." She stops, then asks, "What did it say?" You think for a moment, then reply, "That I've been walking too hard and too far, and maybe not in the right direction." She blinks. Your foot said all that. You smile in its own way. She sits beside you, small legs swinging, and together you wait. After an hour, you unwrap the bandage. The crack is smaller, not healed, not gone, but less angry. The herbs have soothed it. You wipe the heel clean with warm vinegar and sprinkle a few grains of salt along the edge, your mother's old trick to seal the path. The skin flinches, then relaxes. You stand slowly, gently testing the weight. The floor greets you. The heel holds. You feel more together. That night before bed, you sprinkle dried marjoram across the mat just where your heel caught that morning. Not for pain, for reminder. Because even healed things deserve care. You lie down, braid your hair, and drift toward sleep, knowing your body is a map. And every crack tells you where you've been and where not to step again. The air that night is thick, humid, in the way that clings to your skin, like a whisper you can't shake off. Thunder rolled through the hills at sunset, and though the rain hasn't come yet, you can feel it building behind your ribs. You've left the shutters cracked just enough to let the pressure in, because nights like this are the ones that pull at dreams. And when dreams grow too vivid, when they come twisted or uninvited, there's only one remedy passed down in your house: a clove of garlic pressed gently inside your bra. You've never questioned the practice, though others might. It's as natural to you as placing a rag over your eyes or tucking lavender under your pillow. Your mother taught it to you on the night of your first true nightmare, when you woke screaming of worms in the bread and fire in the well. She placed a clove against your heart and said, "Let it eat the fear before it eats you." So tonight, when your belly feels too full of unspoken thoughts and your skin hums with unshed worry, you go to the garlic. It waits in a small wicker basket near the hearth, braided together by stems long dried. You untangle one fat, firm clove, purple-streaked, fragrant, alive. You rub it between your palms to warm it, then nestle it beneath your linen underdress, tucking it just over your heart. It sits there heavily, at first a cold stone above your breath. But slowly, as your body warms, it begins to soften. Not physically, just in presence. As if it too is adjusting to the task ahead. Historians still argue whether sleeping with garlic was done for warding spirits, treating anxiety, or protecting from nighttime illness. In your town, it's all of those and more. You blow out the last candle. The room shrinks into shadows. Your niece is already curled beside the wall, snoring lightly, arms wrapped around her doll. You lie flat on your back, feeling the clove press gently into your skin, and you let the dark settle. The garlic works by scent, yes, but also by story. You've always believed that. Its power comes not just from sulfur or bite, but from memory. It knows fear. It has tasted battle. Garlic hung from cradles, from doors, from the necks of soldiers and the hips of midwives. It has been medicine offering shield. Tonight it's a lullaby. Your breathing slows. The window creaks in the wind. A shutter bangs open somewhere down the lane, but you don't flinch. The garlic holds your courage. You begin to drift, and your dreams, when they come, arrive soft-edged. You're in a garden, maybe, or a bathhouse carved from stone, somewhere quiet, where your hands are clean and your mouth doesn't taste of regret. You are sitting combing someone else's hair, or maybe she's combing yours. There's no rush, no noise, only warmth and the faint, familiar scent of something green, something sharp garlic blooming in the dirt at your feet. In the dream, you crush a clove between your fingers, and instead of sharpness, you feel calm. A thread of safety running through your blood. You don't know how long you sleep, but when you wake, the world is quiet. The storm has passed. The sky is gray, but kind. You sit up, slowly, press your palm to your chest. The clove is still there, warm now, shaped slightly by your breath. You hold it in your hand, look at it like you might an old friend, and whisper, "Thank you." You don't toss it out. No, like all good talismans, it must be returned with care. You wrap it in a scrap of muslin and bury it under the hawthorn tree, out back the one that never dies, no matter how many times it's trimmed. That's where the other garlic cloves lie, the ones from other nights, other fears. Your mother's your own, and soon maybe your niece's too. When you return inside, your body feels lighter, not cured, not erased, but settled. You boil water for barley tea and smile faintly at your reflection in the copper pot. Your face looks clearer somehow, not prettier, not younger, just quieter. And you know, it wasn't the tea, it was the clove. There's a girl in town, young, wide-eyed, barely 15, who just yesterday asked you the boldest question you've heard in months. "Why don't I have a beauty mark?" she'd said, frowning at her own reflection in the tail end of a tarnished kettle. "Everyone I admire has one." You didn't laugh. You didn't scoff. You just tilted, your head smiled softly, and said, "Maybe you haven't earned it yet." Because in this town, beauty marks are not inherited. They are not born nor given by nature. They are placed with intention and with ritual. A dot of soot, a prick of ash, a kiss from charcoal just beneath the eye, or at the curve of the lip, or at the tip of the cheekbone. A sign, a seal, a symbol. The beauty mark ritual isn't something done in vanity. It's done in remembrance, for a moment, a wish, a grief. You don't paint one lightly, and you never wear one just because you can. You remember the first time your mother gave you yours. It was after your sister left the village to marry a man with gold teeth and a cart full of wheat. You were angry, hollow. You felt like something had been stolen and no one had noticed. That night, your mother called you to the hearth, lit a candle with 3 twists of wool, and said, "Choose where your sorrow lives." You touched your left cheek, just under the eye. She took a tiny coal from the fire, cooled it on a stone, and used the tip of a goose feather to draw the mark. Just a dot, but it stayed. Not forever, just long enough to remind you that even grief deserved its own name. Historians still argue whether medieval women used painted marks to denote fertility mourning or protection from spiritual jealousy. In your town, it's all of that and none of it. Today you feel the weight of something pressing on your chest again. Not heavy like sadness, more like the tug of change. You've had a strange dream. You found a silver coin in the thatch roof. A bird landed on your window and stared. These are signs. You know them, so you prepare the ritual again. You grind a bit of soot from the edge of the chimney, fine, as flour. You mix it with a drop of goat's milk, fresh, still warm. The milk your grandmother used to say holds the softness of truth. Without it, the soot is too bitter, too harsh. You add a single drop of wax from yesterday's candle, not today's. New wax doesn't remember. You stir it with a nettle needle, murmuring the old line, "Let the mark be not of skin, but of soul." Then you sit before the mirror. Your hair is braided. Your cheeks are bare. The room is quiet except for the creak of the walls and the slow rhythm of your breath. You raise the goose feather and place the mark. Today, it goes just above the corner of your mouth, a place of speech, of stories, of letting things out that no longer belong inside. The dot is small, nearly invisible, unless you tilt your head just so. But you feel it, like a weight, like a ring, slipped onto the body's surface. You sit for a while, letting it dry. You are not alone in this. You know several women with hidden marks. One wears hers behind her earlobe, where only her lover sees it. Another on the inside of her wrist. A third in the crease of her elbow for protection when carrying heavy things. Some marks are drawn for joy, others for sorrow, a few for revenge. You've worn a dozen in your life, each with its own meaning, but never more than one at a time. That would be greedy and dangerous. Your niece asks you later, "What's the dot for?" You smile. "To remember what I'm letting go." She looks confused, then nods like she understands more than she admits. You'll let her place her first mark when the time is right. For now, you carry this one into the evening, past the supper fire, and the washing into the long quiet after the candle has been snuffed. You press your fingers to the mark once before bed, not to rub it, not to check it, but to acknowledge it. Tomorrow it may wash away, but tonight it belongs to you. The bell rings twice, slow and low, echoing through the morning mist, like a voice with no breath behind it. You don't need to ask who it's for. Old Malus, the candle woman, has passed. She wasn't family, not by blood. But in a town like yours, that hardly matters. She made the wax for your wedding talisman, taught your niece how to coil a taper without breaking the wick, and once whispered to you that she dreamed of dying with lavender tucked behind her ear. And now her house is quiet. You gather your things quickly, the rosemary sprigs, the lye soap, the cloth boiled in rose water. The final wash is sacred, and the women of the town know who must do it. Not the young who are too quick, not the bitter who scrub like punishment, but you hands, steady heart still warm from last night's dream of Malus's laughter echoing between candle flames. When you arrive, the room is still. The shutters are closed. A bowl of milk sits on the windowsill to catch the spirit should it try to fly without direction. Malus lies on the wooden table, her mouth closed, her skin already stiffening, but her expression kind, peaceful, as if she heard something lovely just before the end. You wash your hands first, then your arms up to the elbows, murmuring the old phrase, "Let me be clean so that she may be clean." You start with the forehead, moving slowly, rhythmically. Soap from lye and goat's fat warmed with thyme. The cloth moves in slow circles, not to erase her, but to remember her gently. You rinse it in rainwater. No well water too grounded. Rainwater is closer to where she is now. Historians still argue whether post-mortem washing rituals were symbolic acts of spiritual transition or simply early sanitation practice. But in your town, it is an act of love. You work in silence. No chatter, no song, only the steady dip and ring of the cloth, the occasional whisper of breath through your lips. Her hands come next once, so busy, always shaping wax-smoothing wicks. You clean them slowly, especially around the nails. You tuck a sprig of dried clover between her fingers. Not because it's tradition, but because she liked the way it smelled. Then the feet. You check for cracks on the heels, and though she's passed, you still rub in the marjoram salve you made last week. A final kindness. The final step is the hair. You unwrap the scarf she always wore, and her silver strands fall loosely around her shoulders. You do not weep. You oil your fingers and comb gently, not to detangle, but to smooth. You find a small scar near her temple you never knew was there. You whisper to it, "You're safe now." Finally, the rinsing. You use the lavender water, cool and soft, and pour it from a clay pitcher in 3 slow streams, over her hair, her chest, her feet. Then you dry her with a linen cloth stitched with red thread. You press the cloth against her body, not rubbing, only laying it down like a blessing. Before you wrap her, you pause. There's one last tradition, a mark. You take a coal stub from the hearth and press it gently to her left palm, drawing a small dot. It's not visible once she's wrapped, but it's there. A signal should any spirit see her hands and ask, "Who are you?" She can answer, "I was Malus. I made light in the dark." You leave the house without a word. The air outside is brighter now. The milk on the windowsill is still. The trees are quiet. And though your hands are red and your heart is tired, you feel something else too, something whole. That night, you wash your own face slowly, with rainwater, with reverence, because one day someone will wash you too, and you hope they do it gently. The house is quiet now. The fire has fallen to gentle embers, no longer glowing, but warm enough to hush the room. The shutters creak faintly in the breeze. The linen on your shoulders is soft from use. Everything around you is settled, not finished, not resolved, just still. And in this stillness, you breathe. You've walked through so many rituals, strange ones, tender ones that smell of soot and rosewater and old garlic. You've pressed herbs into your skin. You've whispered chants that no one else remembers. You've scrubbed, wrapped, soaked, and buried tiny pieces of yourself in the name of care. And you did it not because the world told you to, but because the women before you did. You remember their voices. Not always their words, but their hands, their habits, the way they placed things gently, the way they hummed while wrapping cloth around a cracked heel, the way they never rushed when the wind turned west or the moon hung low. You too have become one of them now, not ancient, not mystical, but still enough to hold space for what matters. The taste of vinegar on the tongue, the scent of ash on the fingertips, the cool weight of rainwater on a clean scalp. You lie back now, the blanket rising softly with your breath, and let it all fade. The bread crusts the nettles, the blood and soap and soot. You don't have to carry them. Not tonight. You've done the work. You've listened. You've remembered. Now it's time to let it all go. The past has been rinsed from your skin. The day has burned off your worry. There's nothing left to tend to, nothing left to scrub, only rest, only stillness, only the faintest pulse of your heartbeat, reminding you that you are here whole and held in cloth, in shadow, in memory. So close your eyes. Let the weight lift from your hands. Let the wind take the words from your lips. You've been cleaned. You've been blessed. You've been heard. And now you may sleep. End of script. Thanks for letting us be part of your night. Sleep well, dream safe, and we'll see you in the next sleepy story.